Great. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started. Thank you for being here with us again today. A very warm welcome to those who are joining us for the first time, and a warm embrace to everyone who's come back for the second day. I'm really delighted that we will have 4 exceptional curators who will articulate the key questions and stakes of their work. But before we get to them, I want to look back at the incredible presentations we had yesterday. We've all had a chance to process, to sit with many of the ideas that were put on the table, and I wanted to kind of join the 2 days together by bringing some of these threads to the fore again, and also to invite you in this early reflection and introductory part of the day to think about things that really resonated with you, that really came through and that you've been sitting with since last evening, or that had kept you up last night. We'll have a chance to hear some of that. I will open it up to comments more than questions perhaps for a few minutes before we move to our first presentation. But I really want to kind of underscore the ways in which yesterday's presentations allowed us to think in very diverse and expansive ways about how curatorial practice unfolds. Starting in the morning, producing infrastructures and contexts that which does not exist and has not been thought about was a kind of recurring preoccupation. As Sharmini said, the what if, how about, why can't we approach to curating, which immediately opens doors to other possibilities and forms of access. We saw how bookmaking became a mode through which complex conceptual fields condensed into tangible encounters with paper, text, and image, how institutions could define themselves through research and interrogation before becoming places that acquired objects and built collections. And we spoke of outcomes that are determined by inevitability and urgency in the process of this interrogation, rather than by prescription, precedent, or expectation. Amal showed us the possibilities of what civic curating can be, and that's a term that we might want to think about more today. Not as a department within an institution that's tasked to build relationships with so-called community actors or a sponsor of educational programming, but a kind of profound reckoning with the structures and hierarchies that must be collectively and incrementally dismantled. These notions of incrementality and iterativeness held deep significance for all of our presenters yesterday, and I would hazard to guess that they will come up again today as well, who all spoke about slowing down, developing projects over time and in stages, and thinking about manuals and curricula, ways of doing that we share, that we produce as forms of knowledge, that help us accompany artists on journeys through research and commissioning, and also allow us to enact this radical administration of resources, a kind of way to think of how to produce more for everyone rather than a zero-sum game. In Muhammad's presentation, we heard about the necessity of doing something then and there, which transformed this shared domestic space into a site for exhibition and cohabitation with both art and artists, a kind of residency in a literal sense. And many of those core impulses, particularly this idea of the institution as a host, of the curator playing host, remained with him as the scale, the scope, the community of the project shifted within this new institutional appointment. And what really stayed with me there was this notion that in every situation, we have the ability to create something in which we can see ourselves and where we can really hold each other through careful listening and constant negotiation. This idea of negotiation, both subtle but also interventionist, with the form and forward march of institutions, came through repeatedly in Akansha's poetic provocations, where she urged us to remember that institutions, for all the wholeness and solidness that they project, are volatile and unstable terrains. And it is precisely this precarity which is also an opportunity for curators and cultural workers to make and remake from within, to rescue us all together from speed by introducing in these zones of contact the undigested and the speculative. I know all of these ideas will stay with us through today's presentations, and I look forward to putting them in dialogue with what comes up today through the course of the day, but also in our panel discussion later this afternoon. And in that spirit, I want us as a group, all of us as participants of this hub, to have some time. We have a few minutes before we hit Pooja's presentation at 11, and I really want to open up the room, both here in Kolkata as well as virtually, to everyone who's joining on Zoom, to feel free to respond, to offer a comment, to offer a quote, a thought, a question to the speakers from yesterday, if there are things that, that you thought about later or that came to mind, as it always does when I'm presenting something, and I wish I had said that. So if there's a footnote, an afterthought, a response to someone else that you want to articulate this morning, the floor is open, and we will take questions, comments. There's a microphone there, there's a microphone here, and also the Zoom chat is being monitored, so if someone wants to type out their comment, we're very happy to share it with everyone.
If you raise your hand, but I do know the experimental team wanted to ask if you can.
Great.
You can go if you feel like, and then open it out again.
And today we're really looking at this side of the room to participate more than they did yesterday. Or we're going to swap.
I can start.
Thanks.
Yes.
Yes. Hi, I'm Ahun Guptu, and I'm from Team Experimenter. I had a question for you, Amal, because you mentioned being hugely influenced by the pedagogy of the oppressed in your practice. And that's something that I also have a lot of familiarity with, and I was wondering what are some key ideas and models or concepts that you are influenced by, or have they changed how you view things and your practice over the years? What are you still using?
Hello, yeah. Thank you so much for that question. And yeah, I didn't have so much time to speak into that. And I think in terms of Paulo Freire, and particularly Pedagogy of the Oppressed, it started off as a reading group that ran for 2 years, led by Ultra Red, where we invited lots of people from the neighborhood and the artists we were working with on residence in early stages of their residency to read and think. And I think the thing that really I took from that process was not just him and his words, but actually the different ways pedagogues that I am much more influenced by, like Augusta Boal, who did Theatre of the Oppressed. I'm a facilitator and have been, we ran a project for 10 years using Theatre of the Oppressed methodologies to talk directly to and create tools for resisting immigration raids in the neighborhood using this methodology. But also people like Bell Hooks studying the resistance movements in Guinea-Bissau and all of this. It became a space to learn about different ways that methodology shifted. But in a really direct way, I shared that spiral, and I didn't speak about the spiral that much. But for me, it becomes how we do research. How do we listen? at the beginning of a project. Whether you're working with a lot of people or you're not, I think when you're starting to think about a project, I found a lot can come from really just looking at that spiral of how to do critical education with yourself and with others. And I can share that with everybody here. It's a really, really simple set of ideas, but what it really shows is this endless space of listening, reflection, experimentation, trying to put something out in spectacle, but always coming back to the listening again. And it's the endless spiral, so projects can last 10 years.
Thank you. Other thoughts, questions, comments?
Hi, I'm Devoshmi and I work with Experimenter as well. So I had a question for Mohammed. So I really liked your presentation about, when you talked about not only strengthening the communities the community that already exists, but also opening the art community up for the younger generation in the art space. So I was wondering, since you put up the exhibitions at your place as well as art institutions, what does it look like when you transition into a bigger space, and what does it mean for the audience and the community?
Hi, thank you for the question. I think, it's simply, we need to be aware and to go on with the time that passes and to adapt to its time, whether it is in a small project space that you run with your friends or in a big institutions. I think we should always as Amal said, to listen to what the community and the audience kind of feels, and also just to go with the times that we live in, with the technology, but also with the seasons itself. So it means adapting. For example, at the Kunsthalle Basel, since I started, I adapted the opening hours in summer to be open only from 4 to 10 p.m. Only in the afternoon, because I think that nobody is coming to the museum in the morning in summer. So it's kind of changing and getting another pace and having to show that to the public that we also kind of move forward with them, and that we're not kind of as a stagnant status quo, let's say. Yeah.
This is more like a reflection from yesterday's experience. What struck me is the idea of becoming a curator, the belonging and the becoming. And the curatorial becoming is not just the curator's becoming, but the becoming of the curatorial space, right? And I could see 4 different trajectories of becoming yesterday, with 4 biographical, the curatorial personal becoming also is the becoming of their journeys in a way. So that was interesting for me as a thought. And this becoming is also a community building. So curation is not just putting up an exhibition, but curation is also a community building of putting people together. And people, that Sharmini kind of emphasized yesterday, the concept of people is very, very important, because the putting together of people is putting together communities, right? And future imaginaries. So this is what I kind of was excited with yesterday, the idea of becoming and the future becomings that curation can offer. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rajan. My question is open to all of you. Yeah, hi, I'm Rajan. My question is open to all of you. I feel that art comes from a place of a lot of, not being really it comes from a lot of non-conformity, at times a little revolution, at times representing some voices which are unheard, and like Amal said, representing some people which are unseen. So it's all very eclectic, and it is normally not in sync with what the societal norms are. And it is not very capitalistic. I mean, you cannot think about, I personally paint, but I don't think about any outcome when I paint. It's just I'm painting, I'm having whatever, music and my zone. But then you as curators have to then think about the funding and selling it to people who may be totally money-minded and don't know anything about the art. And they're just concerned about the prices of the artist. Per square feet, how much is it going for? Who's going to increase, who's going to decrease? It's like selling vegetables or gold. So how do you deal with this dichotomy that within you are very, you get what I mean, the two different worlds you're marrying. It's hypocritical also, tough also. I would especially want to ask Akansha, but it's open for all of you. Can you please share your ideas on this? Because I face this, so if you can please, yeah, thank you.
You have turned on the mic, Akansha. Thank you.
Of course, Francis. How do you as curators deal with all this? Yeah.
No, I think it's very easy because artists got to eat. And I personally see economy or economic aspects of the art very respectfully and very very practically as well. So it's important. In the entire system or ecology, as we call it, every little thing has a role to play. Galleries have their own role to play. Fairs or one day, like the comic fests that happen, or the spaces of showing or caring that manifest in different forms have their own role to play, and those are also economies, and or exchanges. In terms of, I'll just take this example of a zine or a product or a comic selling in a Comic-Con or a small fest, that exchange or network that gets facilitated by within a community of readers. You buy it from a friend for a 500 rupee, or but it's still money circulation and still respect. So I think it is so crucial. This is so crucial, and it's so encouraging and uplifting for the artist and everybody else. But in the bigger circle, it's paying forward. It's paying forward for the discipline to continue, for the generations to continue, for the institutions to continue. So I see it in that line of exchange where or build up. Yeah. So I see it in terms of.
I want to answer this also.
I'm not underplaying the
So I don't know, that's.
I'm not underplaying the financial part, but how do you balance these two different worlds?
Yeah.
So to start with, most of the curators in this room, at least, I'm not generalizing that curators don't sell, but the curators in this room, their primary job is not to sell art. They are showing work. But a gallery's job certainly is to sell art. And I'll talk very specifically about Experimenter because that's what I know inside out. We take great pride in the idea that we can sell every artist within the program, however political, however ephemeral, however, the beginning of their career, the mid-career, senior artists. And I think that our team and us, we take great pride that we're able to. We don't see selling as a lower job, right? However, this is not one or the other. You're a person from Calcutta, you've been seeing us from inside or you've been seeing us from afar. The gallery does so many things. We take our responsibility quite seriously. We understand what role we play for the community at large, also what our interests are. And there is a whole lot of work that's going on, and this is not one opposed to the other. But what I have to say also is it's not that the gallery is doing some great job by supporting the artist. That's not the point at all. The artist's work is selling because it deserves to be acquired by someone, right? It's not a platform. We're equal partners in this. Because you're talking about the economic parts of this idea. So we're not also subsidizing by selling in antiquity work or a master's work, which sort of has a greater value or a lower, or whatever. So these are things, it's a big conversation. I'm glad you opened it out because not many of us like to talk about money, but I'm trying to say that one takes great pride when, a 3-channel, extremely political film sells to its last edition while we're sitting in a 3 feet by 3 feet office in Calcutta.
It's interesting. Hi, I'm Justine. I haven't spoken yet, but hello. I come from a radically different perspective on this. I serve as an executive director of an organization in the United States, and a huge part of my responsibility is fundraising, which is a direct interplay on these questions around capital and markets and support. And I actually find it to be this unbelievable privilege to ask people to support a dream, to support aspirations, visions, radicality, hope in so many ways, that it's such a strange thing to walk around and go into meetings with people and say, I have a wild artist project that is, the fact that it could even exist is absolutely wild and unthinkable. And I can speak in 2 microphones. And I would like you to be generous in your support of a dream, of something intangible. And that is your governments, galleries, individuals, foundations coming together to support that with money, which is a representation of time, of effort, is such a privilege. Not an easy task, and far removed from my background, but a beautiful and powerful thing. And I think we need to not think of it as something dirty or other that lessens creative practice.
Thank you, Justine.
I'm trying to, bringing things to talk about that,
Yeah. And also to tie it back to, I think, this comment about curatorial becoming, and again back to yesterday, and thinking about resources not in the zero-sum game way, right? The fact that we're doing this work is producing more at every level of this ecosystem, and that kind of redistributive mechanism that produces the possibility for artists to make a livelihood, to also be recognized and be supported, works very much alongside curatorial work, but that's not what necessarily animates the work itself, or there's a kind of complexity in those dynamics that is always at play and always being balanced, as you said, by all of us in this field. So I think with that we will.
If I may just add a half a line.
Sure.
I was with a friend yesterday. Who's
Turn it on. Press the gray button. Yeah.
I was with a friend who's into art yesterday, and there was an exhibition going on, and I said, do you see what's going on? He said, no, these are upcoming artists. I'm just concerned with the $1 million deals and the masters. My staff takes care of all this. So I was thinking about it after I went after the sessions. So that's why I asked the question. That was the context.
We'll invite your friend to the hub next year.
I did invite him.
I think artists, curators are all part of a society.
Yeah.
Artists and curators are all part of a society. We are not these celestial beings who are helicoptered into a place. So while art is inspirational, it's transformative, all of us work towards creating great work. There are also some of us who don't, who are comfortable in our space, who don't want to do something that's experimental or challenging. You have artists also who may find a certain formula that works and who want to continue with it.
Sure.
To me, that is commercial as well. If I can see a style of an artist that hasn't progressed through their career or their practice, then I think there's a compromise there as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I know there are many thoughts that a conversation like this opens up many thoughts. Those little notepads, write them down, and we will surely respond.
And I think the panel discussion this afternoon is a great place to bring back some of these ideas and many others that will come up. So before we begin, just by way of quick reminder, just to give you again an outline of the day's program. We once again have 4 wonderful curators speaking today, as I said, Pooja Vesh, Anne Barlow, Fatima Bintu Rasul C, who will join us on Zoom, and Justine Ludwig. And we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday, which is have 2 back-to-back sessions this morning, and then have a lunch break, and following lunch, slightly differently from yesterday, we'll have 2 back-to-back presentations again, have a tea break, and then have our closing panel discussion. As always, each speaker is allotted this hour-long slot in which they present, and then we begin a conversation with all of us. I initiate the conversation with some responses and questions, and then you're all invited to join in, raise your hands, wait for the microphone, ask your question. For Zoom audiences, please do send your questions in. They are being read and they will be asked. And I just want to again remind you to keep your questions concise so we can have more folks join the conversation. And do take a second to double check your cell phones to make sure they're silent. And please remember not to enter or exit the room while a presentation is in progress. I know if I try to do that, I will fall into this pit.